All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well. We're going to learn a Rashi from Ki Teitze. I'm cheating a little bit, um, sort of bleeding between the end of the fifth aliyah and the beginning of the sixth aliyah, but cheating a little bit because the actual Rashi is in the sixth aliyah. But don't worry, there's plenty more for tomorrow, which we can get to. But basically, in the end of the fifth aliyah, we have the sugya, the concept, the section here which speaks unfortunately about divorce. Ki kach ish isho va'ala v'haya im lo mitzachen beinav ki masa va'ervas davar v'chasav la sefer krisus v'nasan biyada. If any of you learned Gittin, it's part of Daf Yomi, so a lot of focus on this pasuk. Sefer krisus, the whole idea of a get, the whole idea of a document which severs ties, get shichur by an eved or a get by kiddushin in terms of divorce. That's all based on these psukim over here. So the unfortunate case of divorce. Then we have the question about what's called machzir grushaso. If a person gets divorced, can they get remarried? So it says over here, if she goes and she marries somebody else, and then she gets divorced again, whether he dies or divorces her, lo yuchal ba'ala harishon asher shilcha lashuv lekachta lios lo leisha. So a person who gets a couple that gets divorced, if they decide to remarry, they can. But if after the couple gets divorced, the wife marries somebody else and then divorces that person, or that person dies, she can no longer go back to her original husband if they decide to get remarried. This is the concept or the topic known as machzir grushaso. Can you return someone who you divorced? But the psukim at the beginning of the sixth aliyah go in a different direction, not into a case of divorce. Ki isha chadasha, if a man takes a wife that is new. So this is the bridge that sort of justified my use of a Rashi in the sixth aliyah. Rashi says here, isha chadasha, shehi chadasha lo, afilu hi almana, prat lemachzir grushaso. The reason this case is being mentioned over here of a new wife is in contrast to the previous case of Machzir Grushaso. So as a part of the continuation of the topic of Machzir Grushaso at the end of the fifth aliyah, of the case of remarriage after divorce, the Torah is differentiating from that and saying, okay, here's a new case, a brand new marriage for the first time between this man and this woman. Even if the woman was married previously, but between these two people, it's their first marriage. Here's the halachos of marriage for them. So our case here in the beginning of the sixth aliyah, which we're going to do our Rashi from today, is really a contrast to the case of Master Grushaso in the end of the fifth aliyah. So in our case, if a couple gets married and it's their first time marrying each other, so there's special halachos that govern that marriage, which we call today, in colloquial terms, Shana Rishona. The first year of their marriage, there's a bunch of things that apply to them, halacha, minhag, but it's all based here in this pasuk. There's a special treatment of this couple during the first year of their marriage. What's the special treatment? What's the halacha? Lo yetzei batzava, person's not allowed to go out into the army. Velo ya'avor alav l'chol davar. He can't pass over anything for any reason. We'll get back to that in a second. Nakiya lebeso shana echas. He should be clean and free for his home, meaning his wife, for 1 year. V'simach es ishto asher lakach. And he should make his wife happy. There should be time for them to focus on each other and create that level of simcha. There's a lot to say about this in terms of our philosophy and outlook and worldview about marriage and the nature of marriage and simcha and the relationship of a couple and how important it is to have that time to build the relationship together. But I want to actually focus on these words, lo yavor alav l'chol davar. Rashi says here, lo yavor alav l'chol davar. He shouldn't pass over anything. What does that mean? Nothing should be passed over him. What does that apply to? What area is that speaking about? Rashi says, Lo yavor alav l'chol davar shu tzorech hatzava. Not only is he not allowed, lo yetzei batzava, to go out and fight as a combat soldier, but in addition, in the context of that army, lo yavor alav l'chol davar. He's not allowed to be tasked with anything having to do with the army. For example, lo l'sapek hamayim u'mazon. He can't provide the water and the food for the soldiers. Velo l'saking drachim, and not to fix the roads so that in our day tanks or their day chariots or anything can drive for the army along those roads. He's not allowed to do any of the extraneous jobs in the army, even in a non-combat sense. And how is this unique? How is this special? Rashi points out, aras isha v'lo lekacha, maspikin mayin umazon umesakim es hadrachim. There are categories of other people who cannot fight in the army, as we saw already in Shoftim and here again in Ki TeitzeThurs, that certain people leave the war to go back home. So the examples the Torah gives are a person who built a new house but didn't have time to establish it, a person who engaged a wife but didn't yet get married. Those people also have to go back from war. So Rashi implicitly is asking, why does the Torah repeat over here that this newly married person, lo yetzei batzava v'lo yavor alav l'chol davar? The reason it's repeating it here is because this case is different than those cases of chozrim ma'orchei milchama. When you are chozer ma'orchei milchama, you're not allowed to fight as a combat soldier, but you are allowed to partake in the other things in terms of the war, right? We believe that if you built a house and you didn't have time to establish it, you're not going to be a good combat soldier because you're not going to focus. Your focus is on home. You're going to realize, oh my gosh, I didn't put this on the house. I didn't do this. I didn't have time to establish this. My fields aren't ready. I didn't do all the things necessary in my house. I'm so distracted. I'm not going to fight well. Torah says, I don't want that kind of soldier. I want them to go home and take care of what they need to do. I don't want them to fight in a combat sense, but they can still do other things as part of the greater effort of the army. However, when it comes to the person who's newly married, the ideal is not for them to not be distracted and not be a bad soldier. The idea is to make sure they're not out somewhere else, but rather they're at home, spending time together as a couple and creating that system of joy within their marriage and within their home. And if that's the case, they cannot only not be a combat soldier, but they also can't provide any other functions in the army as well. That's the distinction over here. It's a technical distinction. It's an important one because the question is really a ripe one. Why is this Ki Kach Isha not included over there in the list of the Chozim or Chamachama? Rashi's answer is because it's not the same. Over there, those people who can't be combat soldiers can do other jobs. In this case, the person cannot. That's why Rashi answering that technical question of why it's separated. But the beauty of the Rashi is really what it indicates in terms of the larger principle, the importance of building a marriage. And how we do that is really by spending time with each other, which is the way we build any relationship, even outside of marriage as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.